Ahoy! Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another intel report. This series grinds all of the units in Command & Conquer Rivals down into a fine powder, then throws them into a beaker over a Bunsen burner to find out how they react. I'm feeling a little like a Friday night pub musician at the end of his set, as this intel report is a popular request. Today we're revisiting one of my older videos and looking at the Nod Avatar. The Avatar war mech is designed to counter the heavier units in GDI's arsenal. Equipped with both an Obelisk-class laser cannon and a powerful flamethrower, the Avatar can dispatch enemy ground units with ease. The Avatar is Nod's super unit, their counterpart to the Mammoth tank if you like. The Avatar is a terrifying and imposing figure that strikes fear in the opposition when it strides out from the Temple of Nod. Though it's fairly slow moving and not in fact the master of all four elements, it's definitely at least mastered firebending. You see, its laser cannon deals a stream of continuous heavy damage to enemy vehicles that dare to get close, and its flamethrower will annihilate any enemy infantry foolish enough to still be stood in the way of the Avatar's warpath. Avatars have radar, which means that this terrifying weaponry can be brought to bear as it wades through your opponent's army, roasting merrily as it goes. As with other raider units, use this to your advantage to keep mobile and to carve a bloody swathe through your opponent's infantry and vehicles. For all their fire and vicious laser fury against ground targets, Avatars are simply not equipped to handle enemy aircraft. Like with the Mammoth, despite being a super unit, the Avatar needs some kind of key weakness. Orcas, Mohawks, Orca Bombers, Infernos, Banshees, Laser Drones, Kodiaks and Basilisks are all great options for taking down an Avatar, as they'll be able to pound away at it whilst taking no return fire. Long-range units like the MLRS, Giga Cannon and Artillery can also deal a hefty punch, before the Avatar gets close and pops them like bubble wrap, that is. But don't underestimate the power of tanks in this situation. Yeah, sure, an Avatar will fry them with its laser one by one, but it can only target one at a time. 2 or more tanks, therefore, will deal a hefty amount of damage to an Avatar before it cooks them. The thing is that the nightmare doesn't even end when the Avatar is finally destroyed, as its core quickly overheats and explodes, damaging whatever the war mech didn't quite finish off before its demise. This explosion doesn't hit air units, however, cementing them as the best foil to an Avatar, but it will deal heavy damage to anything ground-based, which of course includes scavengers, so they cannot loot a dying Avatar. Oksana's fanaticism buff, and indeed the buff granted by dying fanatics, can be terrifying when applied to an Avatar. The sudden speed and damage increase turns an already devastating unit into one that leaves a trail of destruction in its wake. I like to try and make a beeline to the enemy harvesters in order to roast them and pillage their Tiberium to build more Avatars, but don't forget about the pads. I've watched people get too greedy with Avatars and end up losing the missile launch or getting wrecked by enemy air units. Also, be cautious of using fanaticism. The Avatar's not quite as chunky as perhaps you'd imagine, and the additional damage against it that Oksana's buff applies can make the Avatar dangerously fragile, especially if you're trying to rush into heavy firepower. Time the buff for after the opposition fires. Like the Mammoth, the Avatar is almost a win condition on its own. End the game quickly, or be prepared to throw heavy firepower at it. The best way to beat an Avatar, therefore, is to never allow your opponent to field it. If you keep pressure on the launch pads and never let that bar turn grey or yellow, and you harass their harvester to force your opponent into spending their Tiberium rather than saving it, well, it's unlikely you'll have to deal with the Avatar for long, if at all. So we've established that the Avatar is a beast of a unit, and turning the enemy army into a charred mess can be a great stress reliever. So how do you fit this into your deck? Well, Avatars are heavy late-game units. As such, the only way you're going to be able to field one is either by scoring repeated kills on the enemy harvesters, or by running 2 harvesters of your own. I have 2 deck suggestions for you. The first is a variant of the deck that I originally suggested for the Avatar. Due to their high cost, it's best to keep Avatars as the only expensive unit in your deck. As such, here we run a very basic core deck of militants, lasers, attack bikes and buggies, and then the Avatar with Oksana as a commander. Finally, we add in our heavy anti-air unit to support the Avatar against those pesky air units we talked about earlier. Here, stealth tanks are my preference as they're cheaper to get out as the war factory is already open. but since the changes to how the Temple of Nod operates, getting cheaper for each other building that you open, the Phantom is certainly doable as an option if you don't have levels in stealth tanks. It just works better to have the Phantom out before the Avatar so that you get the bonus for opening the Temple of Nod, making this a slightly more situational build. Opening with rifles allows you to scout cheaply and hopefully deal with almost any threat using just the barracks units. The hope is to transition into the war factory only when you need it. From here you should do everything you can to seize the first missile and try and take a harvester kill for the bonus. The aim, and the win condition, is to get the Avatar out as soon as possible, run it through your opponent's army, and either seize the pads entirely or nuke their harvesters, as the Avatar can melt these fairly quickly. The second deck suggestion is one that I like to refer to as the Avatar deck, or Avatar? Pick your own pun. The deck has several variations. Now the one that I'm showing on screen now is run by Natural Sky. Yes, him of the Mammoth Tank fame. Apparently he likes the big units and is known for running Mammoth Tanks on GDI and Avatars for Nod. Here we have the Militants and Lasers for early scouting and dealing with early threats. Venoms then perform anti-infantry duties, with the Phantom being here to keep the skies clear for your Avatar. Now you'll notice I've left out mentioning the third slot. This is where the deck varies in its options of anti-vehicle units. Natural Sky opts for Mutant Marauders. These beefy boys will deal with almost all ground-based vehicles short of tech units. As they're in the hand of Nod, they're also readily available very early on. As an alternative, you can also run laser drones here. You're likely to open the air tower fairly quickly with this deck anyway, so to get the Venoms. Therefore, laser drones are within reach of the early game too. These naturally work better against things like Shatterers and Chem Buggies, but do fall apart in the face of slingshots. Either deck has its pros and cons, so really it's up to your own preference here. I have even seen people try to run Banshees, but this, to me, it's not quite as viable. Of course, it's worth mentioning that in both of the decks I've suggested here, you can swap out the laser squads for scavengers. This does mean that dealing with some of your early vehicle and air threats is more expensive, as they cost 30 over 20, but if you're able to use the scavengers effectively in order to grab those extra Tiberium bounties, then you do get to move into your Avatar considerably faster. It's entirely up to you as to which you would run here. Alright, well, now it's time to grab a replay and break it all down. Let's see that Avatar in action as we go into our featured replay. Before we jump in and look at this replay directly, I just want to talk about what this featured replay section actually is about, because I've been getting a few comments here and there, fortunately quite few, where people are like, oh, so-and-so was an idiot, it's, like watching two 7-year-olds playing, all that kind of thing. One, I think that's a bit harsh. You're not here just to sort of showcase how, amazing you are. I don't care. If you were amazing, I would have found your replay and showcased that instead. However, what this replay is to show is how to use the unit effectively, how to play the deck effectively. That is what I'm trying to showcase here. So in this particular replay, we have Xerius on the left and Dragon on the right. And Dragon makes some major mistakes throughout this entire replay. What I want to showcase is how those mistakes cost him the game and how Xerius deals with that. Now here you can see that Dragon has gone out with the War Dog scouting. He spots the Harvester and the Militants, moves those War Dogs back, the Laser Squad comes out, and it's about the pressure now. Now ultimately Xerius knows he can play the long game here. He has to assume at this point that his opponent is possibly running 2 Harvesters and looking for some big tech too, but he's playing an Avatar deck, meaning that he knows he can stall this, and he's got a good chance that if he can get out his super unit, he can deal with pretty much anything that his opponent can throw at him. So we start off early with just a few War Dog dancing. Out comes a Pitbull because Dragon has spotted the two Harvesters, and so sends out that Pitbull to try and deal with them. Now you'll notice here that Dragon is playing an aggro deck. Xerius brings out a unit of Mutant Marauders, very quickly boosts them, shuts down that Pitbull, along comes some Jump Jet Troopers, and Xerius then brings out his Militants to deal with those. Now it's a very cost-effective way to deal with Jump Jet Troopers. Militants cost 10, Jump Jet Troopers cost 40. Yes, the Mutant Marauders, especially being Oksana boosted at the time, that's not a very cost-effective way of doing it, and so Dragon ultimately there does the right thing, and he forces Xerius into spending some serious Tiberium. Xerius is happy to let these missiles stall out though. He holds it for as long as he can, and at 1 minute 33, there goes the first missile. For an aggro deck, that is entirely too late for Dragon. Dragon really needed to get that missile out earlier. That Talon does finally kill a Harvester, but Xerius has got enough board presence to comfortably just shrug that off and rebuild it. At this point, again, Xerius is happy to just stall those pads, at least stop it charging in his opponent's favour. You can see his Tiberium is up large enough now that out comes the first Avatar. And really, since Dragon is playing an aggro deck, this could be pretty much game over. There is an Orca, which is a great threat, but for some reason Dragon ignores the Avatar, going straight for his Harvester, and tries to take out Xerius' Harvester with the Orcas. Surely the better move there would be to take out that Avatar as quickly as possible before Xerius brings out a Phantom, which he's now done, and that is going to cause Dragon some serious issues. Looking at Dragon's deck, the only thing he really has to deal with the Avatar is actually those Orcas. So with Phantoms on the board, those Orcas just are not going to be able to get close to the Avatar. The Avatar's doing some real damage, gets that Pitbull down. Are we about to see the game end here? No, not quite. Dragon is desperately holding on, trying to stall that out. But Xerius knows, ultimately, even if he lets that missile go, he still has the opportunity for another one. The Avatar goes forward, gonna pop a Harvester just in case he needs it. That explosion... Is it? Yes, the explosion takes out the Harvester as well to add insult to injury as that missile launches. Well done, Xerius. Good game. Now, the point I'm trying to make here is that, as I've mentioned earlier when trying to beat an Avatar, the mission isn't just to blow up Harvesters and to stymie your opponent's economy. You won't manage it. The mission is to charge the pads as quickly as possible. Get those nukes launching in your favor as quickly as you can. That way the Avatar comes out and it doesn't have time to do much before the second nuke launches and wins you the game. Don't focus on killing Harvesters, focus on launching the nukes with as little stall as possible. That means if your opponent steps onto the pad and it goes neutral, maybe you should step off the pad to keep it charging in their favor until you can swoop in and take it back with overwhelming force. That said, there are videos you can check out on this exact subject. I do have one that I'm going to pop up in the description now on how to beat a double Harvester tech deck using an aggro strategy. Yes, it's an old video, the tactics do still stand. Anyway, I am rambling on entirely too much. Thank you very much, guys, for watching until this point in the video. Happy sailing, and see you on the battlefields.